Hi, my name is Lexi Jong and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about the Giorgio Armani Neo Nude True to Skin Natural Glow Foundation. So it comes in a squeeze tube bottle. Okay, this is plastic and I purchased shade 1.5 and this is made in France. It's 35 milliliters or 1.18 fluid ounces. And this foundation is supposed to be a foundation with skincare benefits, and it has a light buildable coverage, and there's a little bit of a glow to it. So if you're familiar with the Luminous Silk line, the foundation and the concealer, they both have this kind of pearl-like quality to them. So at least when I put them on my skin, I see kind of like a pearlescence, and this does not have it to that extent, but it's still reminiscent of that, kind of like in a lighter version, not quite so much of that pearlescence. There is still definitely a glow. So I did mattify mine with some powder, and I do have a clip that I'll show you guys of me applying it so you can see the level of coverage. Okay, so we're gonna start off applying primer, and you can see my skin is really dewy from my sunscreen. I did my skincare and sunscreen, I let it sit, it's been about 20 minutes. So I'm gonna use the Surat Perfectioniste primer, and I'm taking one pump, and I'm starting over here, my T-zone area, because that is where I get oiliest when it's hot outside. And I'm just spreading everything else out all over my face to really kind of mattify that sunscreen a bit. All right, I'm just gonna let this sit for a minute. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna prep my foundation. So today we are testing the Giorgio Armani Neo Nude True to Skin Natural Glow Foundation, and I have shade 1.5. So I found that I really don't need a lot of this. So the squeeze tube actually is useful because I don't need to use necessarily like a full pump. This, I may actually not even use all of this, we'll see. So it's starting to dry down now. My cheeks definitely feel drier. It looks a little bit more matte. So I'm just gonna put some dots here. Okay, and today I'm gonna use the Guerlain L'Essentiel foundation brush and just kind of spread this out. So that is one really light coverage. I'm going to do a little bit more on this cheek. And I'm pretty much using the residual stuff on the brush to do my nose. I'm not putting like a ton on my nose because it keeps my pores from like caking up or anything like in the crevices. And same thing around my mouth here. If I get too much product there, I do get some creasing. All right, so here is 2 coats on the cheek versus 1 coat. So you can see it is buildable. I can get some more coverage with that. And I'm just gonna finish that off. All right, so here is the foundation. Okay, so I was gonna wear this a little bit longer today, but I just wanted to show you guys. This is after 6 hours. It's been just over 6 hours. And you can see there's no real issue. I was just playing tennis, so I'm a little hot. I'm about to get in the shower. I don't usually play tennis with makeup on, but just wanted to see how it held up. And you can see, I'm sweating a little bit, but overall, everything held up really well. Coverage. I have done wear tests, but I haven't filmed them, but I have worn this foundation for the past about week and a half to kind of test it out. So I've worn it in different conditions, and I have to say it has really held up very well. I have been impressed. So typically when I wear this, I prefer to use a primer with it just because of my sunscreen. So I have been using the Biossance sunscreen, and you know, it leaves like that typical like sunscreen dewy look to your face. And I just, you know, I prefer it to be a little bit more matte before I put on makeup. So I have been using the CeraVe Perfectioniste primer, and I really like how that kind of mattifies my sunscreen a little bit and provides a nice base for putting this on. Regardless of using a primer or not though, I have found that this really does give all day wear. So just a note, if you're interested in the ingredients, here those are. You want to pause that. And you know, I think in general, this foundation, I'm impressed. So I expected it to be a little bit lighter in coverage than it actually is. It is a light coverage foundation, but I guess I was thinking it was going to be more like more reminiscent of a skin tint, and it's not. It has more coverage than that, but it is very natural looking, and you know, I think overall it's really nice. So it comes in this squeeze tube, which I actually like because a lot of the times when I pump a foundation out, I'm not using all of that pump, and you can't always control how much you depress the pump on some of these foundations. So I feel like, you know, I'm wasting some. So I like how this is a squeeze tube and I can kind of control it. I don't know if I'll like that when I get towards the end of the tube or not, but right now I do. So this is shade 1.5. And you can see, putting it on my hand here, that it does give, you know, a nice light coverage, and it's buildable. And I'm not sure if you can really see this in the camera, but if I spread it in all the way, you can kind of see still that pearlescence, that shimmer to it. So there is like a luminescence to this. So without the powder, it does give a really nice dewy glow. Right now, because it is a hot day, I prefer to just kind of powder my foundation, but I have worn it both ways, with and without. And I have worn this with and without the primer as well. Again, without the primer and with the primer, both very long wear, all day wear. Specifically, I did get some creasing right here around the lips, just a little bunching of the product. But I have found that if I'm just really cautious to make sure when I'm applying the foundation in the first place, if I just use what's left on the brush around my mouth, you know, the creasing really doesn't occur. Like I'll have minimal creasing around 6 to 8 hours in, depending on, you know, how much time I've spent in the hot weather. But, you know, if I just use what's left on the brush, I really, you know, it's really very minimal, and it's not something that would probably bother most people. Other than that though, I feel like the foundation has really stayed on. I've worn them for 10 to 12 hour days for some of the wear tests, and it really held up well, and it looked great. So I'm very impressed with the foundation. I haven't had any sort of skin reaction or anything. And for me, this is a really good color match. So it gives some coverage. It hides some of the redness in my cheeks, but it still feels really natural and light on the skin. And again, if you don't apply powder to it, you have a really nice dewy look to the skin from the foundation as well. And you know, I think that kind of sums up my thoughts. It's actually really nice. It retails for $40 US, and I purchased mine from the Armani site, and it took a very long time to come. My first order was actually canceled due to my shade going out of stock, and then I finally ordered it, and it took about 3.5 weeks for it to arrive. It is now available at Sephora, so you know, if you want quick delivery, I would recommend purchasing at Sephora, or I'll look and see what other retailers have it as well and leave those links down below if I find anything. But overall, I think this is a really nice foundation. Okay, so just to compare coverage between some of my favorites. Now, the Guerlain L'Essentiel foundation is one of my favorite light to medium coverage foundations. I pretty much never buy full coverage foundations, and This one here, it does give slightly more coverage. I think it does build up to, like, you can build it up to a medium, whereas the Armani, you know, you're pretty much staying at light. You're not really going to get all the way up to medium without, you know, making it look more like you have foundation on your skin. And by the way, the Armani, you know, it is advertised as the no makeup foundation. So that was kind of their little blurb. So I think, you know, coverage wise, it does help hide imperfections and, you know, provide some level of coverage, but not quite as much as something like the Guerlain L'Essentiel or the Surratt Dewdrop. So the Surratt Dewdrop, I find to have slightly more coverage than the Guerlain when I put this on my skin. So here's that one. And so in order, I would say it's the Armani, then the Guerlain, then the Surratt Dewdrop for coverage. Now, compared to lighter versions that I have really been enjoying, I would say coverage-wise, it is most similar to the Givenchy Teint Couture City Balm. This has slightly less coverage, so it's just a little bit more than this. This one does have SPF, the Armani does not. So I'm just gonna put a little swatch of the Armani right here, kind of in between the Guerlain L'Essentiel and the Armani. So I'm not even sure if you can really tell, but there is less coverage with the City Balm compared to the Armani, but they are going to be pretty similar. Now the Armani definitely feels a little thicker when you pour it out of the tube than the City Balm does, but when you put it on, it really smooths out beautifully. Okay, so just some notes I had about the application. So I have used both a dampened beauty blender, different foundation brushes, and my fingers to apply this. I don't really like the finger method with this. However, if you're trying to build up coverage, I think using your fingers is a great way to get more coverage for this. But I personally think that this foundation shines using light layers, and I prefer using a brush. My favorite brush to use with this is the Kyoto Fupa 03 brush, which is synthetic. I just washed it, so it's drying, or I would show it to you, but it is the one that I use most frequently for foundation. Using a dampened beauty blender is fine. You know, it's just not my preference. I just don't really like to use the sponges that often. I think really it's more just like a pain of cleaning those, but you know, application with that was fine, and it's really easy to target where you want it. So for my personal preference, I prefer using a brush. Okay, so just one other thing I wanted to note about the wear of this. I mentioned that when I was doing the wear test, I did get some creasing around the mouth, and that kind of depended on how thick of a layer of foundation I used. When I use a thicker layer and I really kind of drag that foundation to this area, I definitely had creasing sooner. If I didn't set it with a powder, it was within a couple hours. But if I did set it, it was, you know, closer to the 4 to 5 hour mark before I noticed it. Then if I move to like a lighter layer of application and just use like the residual foundation around my mouth, you know, I was able to extend that to 6 to 8 hours. And if I set that area with powder right after applying it, you know, I kind of got to 8 to 10 hours as long as I really only use the residual on the brush. Anytime I kind of dragged too much product there, I did get creasing here. And again, it, you know, setting it with powder did kind of increase the longevity for that. So what I recommend doing is when you apply it, you know, I like to apply it with the brush. I use the residual around my mouth and, you know, try not to get too much around my nose either. So it's pretty much residual here. In the beginning, I usually use like a very light smear on my nose and kind of spread that everywhere. But then around the nose, I'm really just kind of pushing, you know, whatever is left on the brush there. And then when I am setting my face, you know, often I will just take a really loose, fluffy brush. Like I used this one today. This is the Chikuhodo F01 brush. and I just dusted a light layer all over. But to really prevent the creasing, I think it is best then to go in with a brush and kind of just add a little bit, just pat a little powder around the nostrils and right around the lips where you would get creasing. So I just add a little bit of extra right there. And I don't have, my favorite brush to use for that is being washed as well, but I also like to use this. This is the Sonia G Mini Cheek, or something of this size, because I just like having something smaller that I can kind of press there, or even just like a flat foundation style brush or concealer style brush works well. Okay, so I think that kind of sums up all of my thoughts and results from wearing this foundation. I did wear this during like a range of temperatures. So here it's kind of gone from, you know, having 50-degree weather one day to like upper 90s in the next couple days. So I have definitely kind of tested it through a range of temperatures. And again, I have tested it with different conditions, you know, with sunscreen, without it, with primers, without it, with setting powder, without it. And it's really just held up well, kind of all around. So I think it is a very nice addition to the line. And again, if you're looking for that pearly look, you don't need to set it with the powder. I would recommend, if you're doing that to prevent creasing, I would still, you know, add a little powder around the mouth and the nostrils, but the rest of the face, you know, you don't need to set it. Okay. I had absolutely no issues anywhere else, even kind of, you know, where it meets like concealer or anything, there was no issue. So, overall, I think it's a really great product, and I'm looking forward to using it throughout the summer. All right, so I hope this video was helpful, and if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Stay safe and healthy.